Okay, so this is my turn. I'm gonna share my screen. Okay. All right. Hello, everybody. So this is Barbara Bedogni. Welcome. I'm together with Dr. Rika Stone, the co-chair of the MD PhD Research Residency program, and I'm just gonna go through some highlights of the program itself, and then after that we'll have a little bit of a highlights of the strength of our department, and followed by question and answers session. So as was mentioned before, this is a 1+3 structure, and which means that in year one you will have your research year, and during this year you will be able to participate in clinical conferences anyway. And then you will have from year 2 to 4 your clinical training. You can continue, obviously, during that time. In fact, you're encouraged to do so, to do your research activities, like, for example, funding fellowship applications and publications. In year 4, you're going to have up to 6 months of elective time to continue your research program. At the end of this time, you will be board eligible in dermatology, and you will have completed your postdoctoral training. And from this year, we have a separate research track. So it's not moving forward. Great. Okay. Okay, so we kind of put together several frequently asked questions that we've been receiving over the years, and so I'm going to go through them and hopefully answer some of your question already. So, like I said, we have a dedicated. If you are, if you indicate your interest in being considered for the research track, you will submit the application to ERS and to the research track specific tracks, essentially, which is this number. If I apply for the research residency track, can I still be considered for the traditional track? Yes, but you will have to apply to both tracks in order to be considered for both tracks. And the guidelines and signaling token apply. And again, here I would like to remind you that, Dr. Morrison said you want to send one signal. You can send the signal to the traditional track. If you're so adamant about your research track, you can send a signal to the research track. But if you wanted to be considered by both, then I would suggest you send a signal to the traditional. What is the interview process? So the candidates are selected by the research residency committee, and they will undergo a regular interview with the clinician, with the clinical and research faculty. And then following these, we ask that you present a short talk about your research, and that will help us also kind of figure out what kind of mentorship you need. And these two important dates you need to remember: the interview invitation release is November 6th, 2023, and then the in-person interview date will be January 24th. What is the match process? So we have designated a separate NRMP program code for the research residency program, and this position will have its own rank list. And after completing the interview stage, it is possible for you to be considered and ranked for both tracks. The NRMP match results will indicate which track you match into. My computer is a little slow, but I apologize. All right, so okay, so what is the process for choosing a research mentor? Like I said, your presentation will help us figure out what will be the best mentor and you can have in the Department of Dermatology. The mentor must be in the department. However, as it was mentioned by Dr. Morrison, we do encourage you to collaborate and form a mentoring committee, and we will help you with this. That can capitalize on the University of Miami faculty expertise. So any collaboration you want to, or you think you require outside of the department is absolutely welcome. Will I participate in clinical dermatology residency activity during my research year? Yes. As I mentioned before, we encourage our first-year research residents to participate to clinical activities such as management conference, grant rounds, noon conferences, Miami Derm Society meetings as your research schedule permits. And you will have also ample opportunity to interact with the dermatology residents formally and also informally. What does the clinical residency training portion consist of? How does it differ from standard clinical dermatology residency? You will have complete all your ACG and MEC requirements of clinical dermatology residency training during your year 2 and 4, 2 through 4. In your final year of residency, you will have up to 6 months, like I said, of protected time to continue your research effort. You will be considered board eligible upon completion of your 4th year. So the next set of questions, can I be considered for this track if an MD with a strong research interest? If you don't have a PhD, you can still be considered for the research track if you have a demonstrated track record and experience in scientific research. If an MD, PhD, and do not wish to apply for the residency, for the research residency, can I still be considered for the traditional? Absolutely. And you can still be doing research even in the traditional track. In fact, all residents have a research requirement, and our department is committed to working with you to maximize your time and opportunities based on your interest. How many residents we have? We have trained 5 graduates. We had 2 current residents and 2 trainees. So this is an example of when we have more than one. We are in fact 2 for this academic year and 1 incoming trainee. 2 of these graduates are faculty member at UM. 1 graduate is in a leadership position in pharma. 1 is a faculty member and director of Derm Path at the University of Oklahoma College of Medicine, and 1 is now in private practice. And this is a picture of our graduates. Aslan, who's in head of business development at Regeneron, Anna Nichols and Rebecca Stone are faculty here at UM. Jeff McBride is the director of Derm Path, University of Oklahoma, and I am Isa in private practice. Hamed and Eric are our current residents. Hamed is in year 4 and Eric in year 3, and Nathan and Tammy are our new trainees for this year. And then I wanted to sort of like highlight why we think 1 + 3 is actually a good, excellent, I would say, program. We find that this allows our trainees to be very successful in their research training and allow them to really capitalize on their research in the first year, continue during the clinical training, and then later on in the 6 months in the 4th year if they need be, because they, this is just some example of the very excellent publication, excellent work that all our graduates have done, and they are published in very high impact factor journals. And then lastly, I just want to remind you that if you have any questions regarding the application process, you can email Vanessa Araya, is our program coordinator. Any question regarding the research residency training program, you can ask me, you can email me, or you can email Dr. Stone, and these are our emails for you. And now I'll leave this spotlight to Dr. Tomic Kanish for the research highlights in our department. Thank you so much.
Hello, everyone, and welcome. Let me just start sharing the screen, which should be this. And can you see my slides? I hope you can. Okay, so hello and welcome. It's really my pleasure to talk a little bit and give you just a very brief overview about the research at our department. My name is Marijana Tomic-Stanic, and I serve as a vice chair of research at the department. And so one of the really important aspects of our research mission is really mentoring future generations of scientists and physicians, where obviously particularly this research track, but in general, all our residency training participates in. And so one of the really strengths of this department is a large number of research faculty. A large portion of our faculty dedicates full-time to research. Some of them share between clinics and the research, but we have a total of 17 research faculty, many of which which actually participates in various graduate programs at the level of the graduate school. And so we are very much comparable to the basic science departments in terms of the number of the faculty and productivity. Obviously, that leads and translates into providing a great opportunity and have where we offer a wide range of research topics in our labs and clinics that you can choose for your potential projects. And so our playground is kind of clustered around some themes. Obviously, you know, it's impossible to put in one slide everything we do, but you could kind of get a flavor from the slide. A large portion of the research dedicates to cutaneous cancer research program, both melanoma and non-melanoma skin cancers. Then we have a group dedicated to studying itch and neuroscience program in skin that both relates to chronic itch, pain, neurobiology, and chemosensory biology, as well as dedicated each center and clinics, along with connection with skin and brain imaging, as well as using human and animal models. Then we have the major focus on adnexa and metabolism skin research from very strong number of the labs dedicated to hair research, lipids and metabolism. And again, aging kind of translates into pretty much every of these major pillars. Then something very dear to my heart is wound healing and regenerative medicine research program, which I also direct, but it's focused on understanding acute and chronic wounds and burns, recently HS as well. A big portion is dedicated to understand microbiome infection and inflammation in this context, of course, regenerative medicine aspects using stem cells, and of course, looking at different clinical trials and testing different potential therapies. And then, of course, we have a large portion of clinical research that goes from autoimmune skin diseases to genetic skin diseases, cutaneous manifestations of systemic diseases, and of course, pediatric dermatology. All of this are clinical research areas that are present in the department. And of course, all of this sits on a really important base, which is really looking at the preclinical models that we have developed at the department. So there is a large portion dedicated to testing and using these different preclinical models from human to animals, and also clinical diagnostics and testing, and of course, clinical trials unit, which is dedicated for regulatory support of all clinical trials at a department. And of course, in the kind of the roof or something that is kind of umbrella that crosses all of these pillars is computational genomics and drug discovery, which is one of the strengths at the department, and of course, epidemiology and public health that is kind of an integrated part of everything we do. And so this is just again, a different view of the clinical research in addition to the basic science research and translational research that is ongoing in our lab. Again, I just put some faces, obviously, for our faculty dedicated different focuses and to different specialty clinics, all of which support, obviously, research and different research activities. But the important aspect of what we do is also, even though this is very skin-centric slide, I think we are well integrated with everything that ongoes, and because there are common mechanisms with multiple organ systems, skin kind of translates to many different organs, and similar processes are really related, from innate and adaptive immunity, role of microbiome, tissue injury repair, and so forth. And so we collaborate with quite a bit of different departments and a lot of different aspects that this institution has strength in. For example, the Diabetic Research Institute, Bascom Palmer Eye Institute, and so forth. In addition to that, everything we do also sits into different aspects of what our institution has a very strong interest in, such as nanotechnology, Omics and Hussman Institute of Human Genomics, and of course, Precision-Based Regenerative Medicine and IPSC Technology Institute. So altogether, we are well integrated in the research in our labs, really is very collaborative and multidisciplinary and integrates a lot within other activities within the institution. And so we are making impact, and in addition to really having a pipeline of innovative research in the labs, I think the important aspect is how that reaches the patients. And I think this slide kind of illustrates not only publications, which is where we all start with, but also the activities at the department that are really important in taking next step in translation, which is obviously, obtaining intellectual property or patents, and then taking that and forming startup companies and really taking this innovative research into really clinical practice. And so I think that that's really what provides a really important aspect of what we do in the lab. And in our short summary, I just want to say that in addition to the number of the researchers, our research is supported by the grants from the government, primarily NIH, and some of it from the DoD and DARPA, obviously foundations and industrial sources. Currently, we have over 100 funded research projects, and we are very productive in terms of publications. From our department only this year up to now, at least based on PubMed, there are 304 publications from the members of our department. And in past year, we published 390 papers, which again illustrates quite a bit of productivity that's ongoing in our labs. So we believe that skin research truly inspires. And if you are inspired, we would absolutely be thrilled to participate in your training, and I'm happy to answer many questions if you have, and everybody here will support any interest that you have. And so with that, I will stop sharing screen, and we can proceed with Q&As. And I will start with, before we start collecting more questions, perhaps Dr. Stone, if you can, as one of the former research residents who is a success story, current faculty member, can you tell us a little bit about our rationale of why 1 + 3 as opposed to 2 + 2?
Mm-hmm. So Dr. Benoni kind of mentioned this as well, but we really believe that this is a way to give you a great, strong start towards the career that you're aspiring to in academic dermatology as a physician scientist. So what happens is just that in that first year, you're really immersing yourself in the research as a postdoctoral fellow. You have the opportunity to really do some intensive lab-based research and to get things going with your project. Then when you go on to the clinical residency, you have time to allow the work that you've done to kind of go through the process of writing manuscripts, submitting manuscripts, doing the revisions for manuscripts, so that the goal is that when you get to your year 3 or 4 of the track, you're already in a position where you've gotten things accepted. You're even starting to write grants and fellowships, looking forward. And when you apply for a faculty or an academic position, you're applying already at the level of an assistant professor. So we specifically don't want our track to be 2 + 2, which then sort of becomes 2 + 3 + 4 + 5, depending on how things go, because research takes time. We really believe that when you get a really strong start in the lab that first year, that gives you the foundation to allow the research to continue as you're a resident and you complete the clinical training, and then you're in a great position at the end of the residency to launch your academic career independently. And that's really what we are aspiring to help support you to do.
Great, thank you so much. So I'm gonna look at so one of the questions that is posted is, is there any preference between basic science and clinical research as a potential better fit for this track? And so I think either Barbara or Rivka, I mean, either one can actually take that.
I mean, I guess I can answer it.
Sorry,
we are looking.
Connected.
Oh yeah.
Okay,
yeah. No, so The research year that you're spending is definitely more geared towards bench research. That's not to say that you have past clinical research. We don't think that's important. We think that's critical. But the track is really set up for those who have had significant training in research prior to starting the program, so that you can really get the most out of the year that you're spending with us in the research. So while I wouldn't say it's an absolute, yes or no research more clinically versus basic research, traditionally and historically, we have matched applicants that are more of the bench type of research coming in.
Yes, and I would also say again, as Dr. Kersner mentioned, and I think Brian alluded to this in our previous intro, I think we try to personalize, and so I think the most important is to support the interest of a resident towards whatever their goal is, and we are here to mentor and support them and provide definitely environment that will be conducive to that. And we have had examples previously where a research resident decided to focus primarily on the clinical research, and that also turned to be successful. So I think that we do have some built-in flexibility into, again, personalizing this experience in general. Okay. And so there is another question here. At what time during the research track are people typically applying for K awards? And another one, is there funding available for research technician during the 2 to 4 to support continued wet lab research? Rivka, you want to take that?
Sure. So just to clarify, you need to have a faculty position in order to receive a K award. So that would naturally, that application process would be obviously in close discussion with more towards the end of your time here in the research track, more so setting up how that would work, but you can't actually receive the K award until you finish and you have a faculty position. So definitely we're gearing you up though to have a strong application, which you can prepare towards like in about year 4, probably most likely. And then in terms of the sort of support that you would have after that initial postdoc year, the relationships that you're forming with your lab members and other trainees in the lab who are going to continue while you're there, when you go back into residency, are really going to be critical. The relationships you form with the technicians in the lab are going to be critical, because even though you may not be able to be physically present for every experiment, you're continuing to keep in touch with your lab members and to help the research go on without you, but more with your oversight, which is also, by the way, great training for how it's going to work in your future career as you're supervising a lab and running a lab. So no, we don't give you, a paid technician during that time, but you are essentially working together collaboratively with the members of your lab to continue the research you started, and there is that mutual understanding in place.
Yes, I think this is really important, and this is part of our integrated 1+3, where that's the idea behind it is actually that this research that starts in the first year is well supported throughout and continues. So the fact that you transition to clinical training does not mean that your research project ended. And I think that really is important. I would also say that we very much encourage, and so far, I think every research resident has applied and successfully received funding through this residency 4-year training program, so that they actually have some seed money to start with and support the research. But in addition, again, it really sets them in a really primary spot for be very competitive for the K awards once they become faculty. So that's the idea of the program, so that extended postdoc is no longer needed. There is another question that says students on the research track start the PhD portion during the intern year. So MD PhD students will graduate after 1 year of internship plus 3 years of derm training.
I can answer this. So
yes.
yeah, so no, the candidate has to do a complete intern year in medicine, transitional, pediatric, surgery. And then after they successfully complete an intern year, then they join us here in Miami, where they begin their research year. Okay, so then after 1 year of research, they continue on and integrate completely with the clinical group. So they receive the same clinical training as the rest of our residents, and they integrate seamlessly within the group. Just in case anyone was wondering, they really feel like part of the residency. All right. And then they complete those 3, clinical years, at which point then they graduate. So the intern year, the research year does not count as an intern year.
Right. Yes. And just to clarify, just even further, the idea with our separate match position and program position, it's a 4-year program instead of a 3-year program. So you have a 1-year prelim year and a 4-year research residency training. So 2 matches, prelim and research residency.
Absolutely.
Yes. Okay. I see no more questions. Thank you again all for your attention. And please, if you have any questions, email Vanessa and she'll distribute to us and we'll be happy to respond. Okay, we'll look forward to your applications and seeing you in person in January.